Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Keyblade Master and welcome to my channel. With Tales of Zestiria out this week, it's time to go back and take a look at the bonus game that was put on Steam. If you pre-ordered it on Steam, you're going to be getting this one free in a couple of months. I am playing the PlayStation 3 version for the most part for this review. It's time to take a look at Tales of Symphonia for the PS3 and see what the HD remake did. They did change a few things. Tales of Symphonia for the PS3 is a little bit like Final Fantasy X International Mix on the HD side. But is it still a good RPG after all these years? And are all these bonuses make the game more fun? Let's take a look. Alright, let's start with this game's story. And since this is an RPG that's story heavy, I'm not going to bog people down with exposition in this review. I'm going to do my own story analysis off to the side. But let's just put it this way. When this game is not ripping off Final Fantasy X, it's ripping off Final Fantasy V. But the basic premise of this game is that you take control of a character named Lloyd who has to help his friend Colette save Sylvarant by regenerating the world and becoming an angel and visiting all these temples. And you can start to see the connection between this one and Final Fantasy X, and I'll get into all the parody and ripping off this game does, because it's almost kind of funny. While this game might be a bit of a ripoff of the Final Fantasy series, it does have things that make this game's story its own and makes the characters more memorable. For example, along the road you will always encounter skits of the characters kind of ragging on each other or talking about stuff that's happened that has them worried. In other words, story and character development isn't just limited to cutscenes. You also have some amusing skits sometimes after battles like this one.
Colette, need cure for poison.
I'm fine. I'm not poisoned.
No, I mean, me.
Yeah, these skits would evolve and become better in later Tales games, but where they started was right here in Tales of Symphonia, and when you run into one of them, they're still worth a chuckle, and the fact that they're put in after battles kind of just adds an extra flavor to the game and to the game's story. Now let's start talking about the game's graphics. The graphics in the original GameCube version had some really rough lines around the characters. It kind of made them look more like they were characters off of a comic strip or a manga. However, this HD version is based off the PS2 version, which was Japanese only, and they removed the manga lines in that version. So the characters look a little bit more deformed without the lines, and there was some charm having those lines. With that said, the HD upgrade is still pretty good. The colors are still pretty great. There are a few things, especially when it comes to the environment, that just screams old school, but for the most part, Tales of Symphonia has managed to stay looking current with this new HD port, and it looks really good. For its day, the voice acting is top-notch. In fact, it's still pretty good. We have Scott Menville doing the voice of Lloyd. He's, of course, popular for voicing Robin on Teen Titans, and everybody loves Teen Titans, unless the word "go" is at the end of the title.
Oh, Professor Rain, is class over?
We also have Tara Strong from the same show. A lot of people always mention Menville doing the voice of Lloyd in this, but they forget the fact that Tara Strong, who plays Raven, plays the voice of Presea in this, and they both do a really good job, as does the rest of the cast of well-known anime actors at the time. And for the most part, pretty much every line is read pretty good. There's nothing I can really criticize as being bad in the English dub, but if you're really big otaku, you can now choose the Japanese subtitle option if you want to. In fact, one of the annoyances I do have with this game is the fact that there are now subtitles at the end of each battle scene. This is for the fact that if you play it with the Japanese audio, you'll know what they're saying at the end of the battle. Unfortunately, you cannot turn these off even when you have the English on, and it's a little annoying having those words pop up, but it really is a small complaint overall. Music is also pretty good, and there's even now a sound test option if you enjoy listening to the music as well. Overall, the sound in Tales of Symphonia is really top-notch. There is one more complaint I have about this game, and it does give the Japanese version, I guess, a little bit more of an edge, and that is the Japanese skits are fully voiced in this one. Our American skits are not. Take a look and you'll understand why this does kind of tick me off. However, I do believe it's just too late to fix this.
敵は取ったぜ。
ロイド、お前の母を殺した。
Yeah, that is one of my biggest faults with the original Tales of Symphonia game, is that we didn't get those skits translated into English and fully voiced, and it's always a little bit off when you see one of them played, and they're just not as enjoyable as they are in other Tales games, but it's far from being a deal breaker. Just know that that part of the experience will be missing, especially in the English audio. Anyways, it's time to move on to the gameplay. Alright, Tales of Symphonia is a Japanese RPG from the early aughts, and it kind of fits into that growing period that happened between the PS1 and where we are at now. It's 3D, but it still kind of keeps the PS1 era map, which is something I actually enjoy about this game. I love going into the overworld, and I do love being able to fly the ships called the Riards around the overworld. I miss that in modern day JRPGs. But what really makes Tales of Symphonia stand out, and I do believe this was one of the first in the series to actually use this battle system. I haven't played any Tales games that are older than Symphonia. I'm sorry, but to get the PS1 era Tales game right now costs $100, and I just don't believe spending that kind of money on a game used if you don't know its quality. Anyways, what I like about the battle system of the Tales series is it feels more like an arcade brawler than an actual RPG, and it's really fun. I generally stick with Lloyd, mainly because he feels like a character from, like I said, one of those classic arcade games, but you can pretty much choose from any character that joins your party as a playable character, and they all play differently, so there's a lot of variety in the characters. But basically the battle system works like this. You have a normal attack that does weak damage, and each time you strike an enemy, it fills your TP meter up a bit. Once your TP meter hits a certain amount, you can hit the circle button to perform an art. These arts take up TP, but they do a lot more damage. That's pretty much the basic gist of it. The AI characters are really helpful, and you can customize them with the strategy menu in battle. Sadly, the characters themselves can't use items or anything else that's really complex in this one, but I find that to be a mixed blessing, because one of the gripes I do sometimes have with modern day Tales games is sometimes the characters will use items that you're not intending them to use. For example, they might use an apple gel when you want to throw them a more powerful lemon gel, and like the other Tales games, this one does have the you have to wait a while to use another item. It's only a few seconds, but in a fierce boss fight, and as crazy as the boss fights can get, waiting to use items will become a problem. It's a good problem because it makes the game more fast, fun, and strategically, but sometimes having the AI toss items to you, like in other Tales games, has tripped me up, and I'm glad that tripping up isn't here, even if it is something I have to keep an eye on to make sure my comrade's health stays high. That said, one of the biggest drawbacks to being an older game is that Tales of Symphonia does not have much character customization. If you're someone who wants to really build and customize your own character, you're not going to find it here. It's kind of your standard JRPG level up, yet stronger moves type thing going on here. You do have EX gems that you can pick up and equip along the way, and occasionally they will breed in a unique skill for your character, but that's about it. And when you compare to, like I said, what others like Tales of Zestiria offers now, going back to Symphonia goes back to really simple times, and it's kind of a shame. Now, with that said, there's still a ton of side quests to do. You'll find dozens of hours as you proceed through the games with little side quests that will just pop up that will allow you to go to other areas and to complete things. Some of them are very story heavy or character specific, and when you run into these, it's kind of fun just to go through them again. Also, there are a few things that are different in this PS3 version. There are a few new side quests, which is always good. Having a little bit more to do isn't a bad thing. There's also new character costumes based on future Tales games. You have character costumes from Vesperia, Zillia, Graces F, and Abyss. And I like some of these new character costumes, how some of them really fit the characters. For example, Alvin and Zelos are pretty much cut from the same cloth, and I like the fact that they have a costume for him. However, I do kind of have to question the fact that they gave Colette Rita's costume from Tales of Vesperia, as they are two 150-degree characters. Anyways, there is one bad thing I have to say about the PS3 version of Tales of Symphonia, and that is it's harder to get a character called Kratos back in your party. Yes, somewhere along the line you will lose one of your first characters called Kratos. He decides to leave the party. In the GameCube version, getting him back was easy. There's just this one scene that happens while you're staying at an inn. If you say no to all the other characters that visits you, Kratos will pop up, explain his backstory on why he left the group, and he will rejoin. It will cost you another character down the road, but if you want him back, he's easy to get. In this one, you better be careful with what your affinity is towards the guy. Yes, your affinity will be based on how often you use this guy in battle, and what you do as far as side quests and other choices that pop up for him. If you do not have a high affinity for Kratos, when you get to that part of the game, he will not come to your room now, and you can't get him back, which is kind of a shame. Although the story doesn't radically change if you get him back too much, although there is something that is now non-canon that will happen. But if you wanted him back just for the heck of getting him back, it was easy in the GameCube version. Here it's really hard, and that's such a shame. Anyways, I give Tales of Symphonia HD Remaster 4 out of 5. I like most of the new additions to the PS3 versions, and the game itself is still fun after all these years. There are some things that are a little bit too simple, especially if you're into more of the customization that RPGs offer nowadays. But for the most part, I think you'll find Tales of Symphonia a really fascinating experience. If you pre-order Tales of Zestiria on Steam, you're going to be getting a PC copy of this game sometime next spring, and it's going to be a really fun game. If you haven't experienced Tales of Symphonia, you're in for a treat. Unfortunately, the sequel wasn't as good, and I'll be covering that one in a few weeks. In the meantime, I've got Tales of Zestiria to get into. Anyways, this is Tommy the Keyblade Master, thanking you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. I also invite you to click on the thumbnail to see my story analysis. I will warn you of plot spoilers. Anyways, until next time.